Roger Caston.
Sorry.
I'm Roger Caston. I'm the IBM Flash Worldwide Technology Enablement Leader. And with me is a very knowledgeable group of people. Brian, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Okay, sure. Thanks everybody for joining. My name is Brian Sherman. I'm a distinguished engineer here at IBM and focus really around high availability disaster recovery, and for probably the past 6 years or so around cyber resiliency and what we're up to for mutable copies and protecting your data from the bad guys.
You picked a good area to be focused on.
As it turns
Mike,
out.
yeah. Mike, would you care to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hey, folks, Mike Flint here. I reside in the U.S., but I have a global sales responsibility in Flash systems. So I'm excited to get to talk with in this tech talks for North America. So looking forward to this, Roger and Kat. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, let's move across the ocean to Ian.
Thanks, Roger. Yeah, I'm Ian Shave. I am the director of our worldwide distributed storage sales, working obviously with Mike on the Flash system portfolio, and not being involved in cyber attacks and cyber vaults and things quite as long as Brian, but I'm doing my very best to try and catch up with him real quick. So.
I think you're being modest. So, and
no,
let's
I think I'm being optimistic, Roger. If I think I'm going to catch up, it's blind optimism, I think. But
well, that could be. And let's go ahead and bring it back over to the U.S.
We all have that problem
to somebody
with Brian,
who,
but we're going to get there.
who a lot of you may not know yet, but I have a feeling you're going to get to know him. And not to blow any smoke up his backside, but this next guy, I've told a lot of people, I've never seen anybody come into IBM and hit the ground running as fast as James. James, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Well, thank you, Roger, and thanks for the nice words. I suppose I will send you a check despite our previous conversation. It's super nice to be here. I joined IBM at the very end of last year, so I'm going on 6 months now, which is kind of crazy. But my past, I came from Pure Storage, where I was product marketing for FlashArray, and then later on the AI operations and as a service team. And prior to that, just, I would assume Brian and I have a very similar technical background as far as, just supporting, customers and just being geniuses on technical like Brian is. So I'm super happy to be here, super happy to get stumped. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, there were a couple questions that were provided ahead of time by some of the folks that are attending. And one of those, I'll just throw this out there. I certainly have my own view on it, but I actually like the question. And it's, when would a customer, or better yet, why should a customer cluster a pair of Flash System 5200s versus just buying a Flash System 7300? Does anybody have anything they'd like to weigh in on regarding that question?
Well, go on. I'll take a stab then, because it's twice as good. I'm guessing some people want a little bit of a better answer than that, though. So I think it's just for really where people want to keep management simple, where they want to have a system that truly can scale out and grow as their application grows, as their whether an application or number of applications grow, but they want to kind of keep it as a single system. Obviously, that's the great sort of benefit of being able to cluster these systems together. You can just grow it, scale it as the requirements actually happen. You don't have to start with 2. You can start with 1. You can add the second later. You can add a third after that. So we just make it, I think, very easy to grow as the business grows.
Well, the only thing I was going to add, Ian, was fault boundaries may come into that decision as well. So that if you would rather have 2 and separate your, part of your environments across 2 things, so that if one thing happens to either, planned fail or unplanned fail, that your business can keep running on the other asset as well. So there, and then you can talk about Hyperswap and other things we can do for redundancy, but that might be part of the equation as too.
And I just to add more of a market strategy perspective, if you look at the competition, this is a very unique capability that we have in the market, especially in the mid market. So when you talk about the competitors, like let's pick on Pure, since I just said I was from Pure and I have a orange chair. Don't judge me, everybody that's watching this. You can send me email.
I can't believe the orange is back, James. I can't believe you brought the orange back.
I know. So where I was going is Pure, they have an active passive controller setup. They scale up only. And there's this thing in flash storage, it's called abandoned capacity. And abandoned capacity is particularly relevant with flash arrays or flash systems that scale up only. And so what that means are the controllers are only capable of so much, of only doing so much at a time. And so when you have only one controller pegged doing everything, it's only so much capacity that can address because it's doing so many other things concurrently. So if a Pure customer has to scale and they're getting close to that high performance mark of, let's say, an X20 or an X50, which really aren't that high, to be honest, if they're looking at those things, their only option is to scale out by adding additional management points, like what Ian said earlier. So a Pure customer that is forced to scale out is now forced to manage those products, those platforms individually and without connection. And so that means the capacity doesn't share a pool, it doesn't share resources, it's not extra redundant. In fact, it just adds more potential parts that can break. So I just wanted to add that comment. It's a very unique capability, especially in the way that we deploy it, and that we have our active controller architecture that works, that works like it does. So it's a pretty exciting time.
Well, that's excellent. And that actually, you guys touched on basically all of the things that I had been thinking of. Brian also mentioned the ability to do Hyperswap. And, that's one of the things that is also really unique from an IBM standpoint. You can find that capability with a number of our competitors, but you typically have to step considerably up higher into their product portfolio to be able to do that. To me, one of the really incredible things with IBM is that we bring that enterprise-like capability, something we'd normally think of for big companies. We bring it right down to the mid-market, even, SMB market, and we can do it with an entry-level product. So it is pretty amazing the amount of flexibility
Roger,
that is available.
Roger,
unfortunately,
folks, I'm not
cut
breaking
out
up too much here. But Roger, Ian, can you hear me now?
Yep, we've got a lag, I think, Mike, but yes.
So
Oh, I think we've lost him again.
5200 is an example of adding capacity, right, in chunks that allow you to having to overinvest right away. And I think that's important, especially in small to mid market type clients where you're not having to go and add 12 drives at a time, Roger, right? You can do them singular. And I like that ability to grow at your pace, and it's simple versus making larger investments and maybe not being able to to leverage it right away.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Mike, and you know, rather topical, and given both Brian and I guess, introduced you know, cyber vault and things at the beginning, or cyber attacks. I think, you know, a great additional benefit for our customers is if they've already got a flash system, you know, and they do want to bring in, you know, the ability to be able to recover from, you know, cyber attacks and things, you know, or even if they today only had a single system, and like you were just talking about, they want to start moving towards doing high availability, or, you know, whatever it is they want to do, if they suddenly need more capability out of a system, rather than saying, well, I'm going to add capability and potentially slow down the response I'm getting from an application and things, do you know what? If you want to add more capability, you can cluster these systems together to ensure you've got the horsepower to cope with the additional, you know, capabilities that you want to run. So for those customers, and just like Mike, you were talking about with the 5200, whether it's they want to add capacity, whether they want to add, you know, a cyber recovery capability, but they're sort of near the threshold from a performance point of view for their applications, they can do that. They can add another system in, scale it out, and add in capabilities such as, obviously, you know, cyber recovery capabilities.
Well, and to Mike's point also about being able to expand in reasonable increments, it's really easy to just assume, oh, everybody can do the same stuff that we do. But that's not really the case. You know, continuing with this example, if a client has a 5200, although it could be any flash system model, they can actually incrementally expand that system in as little as a single drive at a time, where we just kind of assume, well, everybody can do that. But if we look at, say, HP with Nimble or their Electra 6000, you actually have to move in chunks of 12 or 24 drives at a single time. I believe with Pure, we look at drive packs, where we're often working in increments of 10 drives at a time. Now, 10 doesn't seem nearly as bad as 24, but I don't know about, you know, any of you on this, you know, call, but yeah, it'd be easy to buy, say, 10 or 24 400, 600 gig drives, but what about 7 terabyte drives or 15 terabyte flash drives? Suddenly you're looking at a really significant chunk of money just to do the next expansion. So I really do like that flexibility that we see IBM bring across the entire flash system portfolio. And I noticed we had a question, and Brian, maybe this is a good one for you, is what do you see as the next big thing for enterprise storage? Where do you see things headed?
Yeah, I saw that one come through too, and prompted a couple different themes that I was thinking of, and so yeah, probably because I'm so close to what, you know, cyber resiliency in what we're doing, some things that will continue to improve around computational storage, and how can we leverage that design point for doing something on the block side of the house that we haven't been able to do around data validation and doing integrity checking, leveraging that computational storage model. And, you know, rather than even how we do data validation today in mounting, you know, mounting an on-array copy to a server or to a data scanning engine. And to leverage that, it's how do we get closer to time zero in looking for events taking place, so that, you know, the cause and the impact of a bad actor is much less. So to me, that's a really cool thing, that you know, in bringing that to, again, within the array, not relying on a backup appliance to do that work, and even enhancing what we do on array for data validation. So to me, that's one really cool thing that, you know, I you know, we see coming, that I think everybody be pretty excited about.
And I think maybe on just to expand upon that a little bit, I think what customers are becoming more and more interested in is less about acquiring a specific kind of architecture and a specific kind of product, and more about how can they as quickly and efficiently get to the outcome that they want to get to. And so when we're talking things like cybersecurity and what we're doing with data resiliency and that's huge. But we're also doing a lot of other stuff too. Like there's also the open container engine. We just launched Fusion. Like there's a whole bunch of really cool things that, to you right now, if you're thinking, I don't get it, I don't know where this fits, I'm not sure what they mean, we need to look in it together, because it obviously means we're not positioning it maybe right or exactly appropriately, but it also means it's a brand new world where if a customer wants to quickly deploy their container environment, they want to be able to do that. They don't want to have to hire a bunch of experts and buy some very expensive technology. They'd rather be able to just quickly and easily gain that new architecture. So just wanted to add that to Brian's comment.
And certainly abstraction and making things at a higher level and not having to deal with what we've historically had to do in storage, right?
Excellent. Well, Kat, I believe you had some questions that you wanted to direct at this group.
Yes. So this next question regards around safeguarded copy. My customer who has a Flash System 5200 running his production applications is hesitant to implement safeguarded copy since he's concerned it will be challenging to begin using this feature. Can you please comment on the difficulty of beginning to use this feature in a live production environment?
No, thanks, Scott. You want to go in? You can go ahead.
I was going to jump in and give the salesy answer, which is it's really, really simple, and then ask you to back it up because they'll believe you. So, I mean, I think we've shown demos where we can get this switched on, get it set up and running in, I mean, less than 5 minutes or something like that. I mean, it's really not complicated.
Yeah, and from a requirements perspective, to the person that asked the question, I mean, you need to, from a code perspective, we introduced that functionality in what we call release 8.4.2. So you would at least need to be at that level of code. And so we've got 6-7 months of runtime on that code stream now, since it was beginning of September of last year. And from a design perspective, it's leveraging flash copy that you guys have been using for years anyway. So it's just, okay, we have a special purpose for that flash copy now called safeguarded copy. So even though, safeguarded copy from immutability is new, it's leveraging the underlying flash copy code that's been around for the past 15 plus years. And the other piece that you need is an automation tool, what we call CSM, or Copy Services Manager. Again, it's been in the marketplace. It's the orchestration tool to manage this environment. So when you've got those two things, the code at the right level and CSM, as Ian said, it is as simple as what volumes do you want to protect? You put them in a volume group, you give them a policy. That policy says how often do you want to take them? How long do you want to keep them? And you're done. That's it. So stepwise, there's not a lot of steps to go through. Put your volumes in a volume group, give them a policy, CSM automatically picks it up and starts making your copies for you.
So Brian, at what level do lab services and IBM support need to be involved with getting that set up?
Support doesn't need to be involved at all. Like your previous vendor.
Yeah, that's why I was throwing that softball to you. Yep.
Yep, thank you. And lab services, it really depends on whether you guys want to leverage lab services or not. I said it is very simple to set up safeguarded copy. But if you would prefer to have somebody come in and set that up for you, make sure, okay, we've thought about everything we're supposed to be doing, then absolutely, we've got our lab services team that can either do things like a workshop to try to figure out, well, what kind of frequency and retention are you looking for? Here's what we see other customers doing. Does it apply? Do you need more, less? And then to the implementation. And so again, there's a wide range of those lab services that we have available to help you along that journey.
Yeah, and I think, Brian, that's one of the really important things, right? Is as you said, you don't have to use our services, but that we have them available where people need help. So if you're not sure what if a customer isn't sure what RPO, RTO they need to achieve. Therefore, they don't know how many copies that involves and the frequency is exactly as you were saying. Then, of course, we've got people that can help with designing the right thing. However, if they already know what they want to do and how they want to do it, and they literally just want to turn a feature on, they don't need to be paying for the services teams to do that. It's really not complex to do at all. Very, very straightforward. Now, of course, we'd hope with a lot of our customers that they'll, perhaps be involved with us in doing a cyber resiliency assessment. So we'll help them understand their gaps, which will probably help them with some of the information they need for that. And it's just going to depend on what level of detail they actually need to sort of or want to get to. And ultimately where they want to take this design to, because safeguarded copy helps them have the immutability, it helps give them the ability to be able to recover. If they want to fully automate the whole thing, that's probably when we might want to get our services team more involved with really designing the right thing to get the automation, to get that recovery down as low as absolutely possible.
But Ian, you hit it on the head. If we can leverage, if our clients and our partners can leverage the CRAT studies, right, in that NIST framework, right, that's going to be huge with probably defining a little bit closer, what your requirements are, right? So if you're going to engage safeguarded copy, it makes sense to understand, what you want your structure, what do you want your backups, how often, right? Those types of things need to be determined, but you got to see how resilient your environment is first. So that study really helps to really get the right focus that you need.
Absolutely. Well, and of course, really importantly,
IBM charge for that study?
Well, for the CRAD is no cost.
Yeah.
And it's vendor independent.
Yep.
Yes.
So it's not tied to IBM technology.
Yeah, and Brian, I think we should add that, at the end of it, the customer actually gets a proper report about where their exposures are. It's not we ask them to talk to us and then we keep it all and we don't pass it on. We create a report for them, exactly as you said, that then is actually vendor agnostic, but it helps them understand where are their gaps, what are the kind of things they need to be thinking about, what is their risk of exposure. I would actually say, quite a lot of customers, I think, tend to know some of these things because they've probably got high availability. We talked about Hyperswap. They've probably got high availability for some critical applications, or they're doing synchronous or asynchronous mirroring because they already know they can't afford for that data loss to be high. So they'll know what the cost is probably per minute or per hour of things not being available. And that's going to help them leverage what are the right decisions, and how many copies they're going to keep and things like that. So yeah. Now, one other point I do want to point on, which I don't know if James was another thing you were hinting towards, but of course, no, we don't need to use any. You don't need to use any IBM engineers to use this thing or to make any changes to it. Indeed, that's all within the customer's remit. But there is multi-factor authentication as well. So you can, separation of duties, I should say, more importantly. So you can still ensure that no one individual potentially could have full control. You can separate these things out. You could have a storage administrator setting up when the copies are going to, be taken. It could be a security officer determining the frequency, when they expire, etc. So, there is that separation without an IBM engineer.
And we had somebody who definitely is paying attention because they asked the question, aren't we removing the need for Copy Services Manager in Spectrum Virtualized 8.5? It's much better to have the snapshot scheduler orchestrator straight from the flash system GUI rather than deploying a Copy Services Manager virtual machine in the client environment. Some clients do not like to add instances to their environments. Brian, you want to touch on this? Because I know it's something you encounter and deal with frequently.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right that in the upcoming 8.5.1 release, we are introducing an internal scheduler to Spectrum Virtualize. So you will have a choice, and there may be use cases where you want to leverage an external scheduler like CSM, or we'll also be adding CDM, Copy Data Management, or the internal scheduler. And each of those orchestration tools have some very different use cases where it makes sense to leverage one or the other. And for those of you that, yeah, you just don't want to deal with, an external server to do this, absolutely. The internal scheduler will make a lot of you very happy, because we've been hearing this for a long time, that we need to have the internal scheduler. So yeah, you're absolutely right that we'll be introducing some additional options on schedulers in the very near term. So watch this space for a couple of weeks, and you'll see the announcement happen.
And I think importantly, Brian, it's going to be a lot easier to use than it was for Roger to actually describe it. And anyway, so
thanks, Ian.
No problem. That's what we're all here to do, is kick a man when he's no. I mean, support someone when
Kat, do you have any other questions you'd like to direct to this group?
Yes, and I think just looking at the clock, this might be our last one, but I thought this was an interesting question. Does IBM have any other plans for Red Hat integration with other storage products?
Well, the answer to that is yes. It's constant and ongoing. And I'm sorry, but I can't recall which gentleman brought this up earlier, but we've recently introduced IBM Spectrum Fusion. And Fusion is a new storage deployment from IBM designed to utilize Red Hat OpenShift and to bring large-scale container usage into everybody's hands. And actually, it's incredibly scalable. So you can start reasonably small and grow it. But there is no question that there is a constant evolution and integration of those capabilities. If you guys have other things you'd like to add, by all means, please do.
Yeah, I think from the marketing standpoint, we've just historically not done a great job with telling that better together story, because there certainly are technologies that are existing and have been existing for quite some time that make it a better together story. So just expect from the marketing end and the go-to-market side, we're going to be definitely painting a really awesome story with Red Hat and the Open Container Engine and everything we're doing with that stuff. So that's really exciting. And then, as you think of alliances and ecosystem, think even farther, stuff, internal to IBM and external on what that means. And so there's some really great opportunity for us to talk about, not only just how great the flash system is, because we all know that already, but what is adding a flash system to your environment do for your application? Like what benefits can this provide to you? What's the outcome? Do you get your weekends back? Do you get to reduce a rack cost at the colo? What is that outcome that you're really trying to drive towards? And you can't really tell that story effectively without telling that better together aspect with the applications and the providers. So yeah, we're really excited about that. Thanks for bringing that up.
Hey James, I'm gonna piggyback off your comment here. So Kat, I need one more minute here, but we have a better way to grow programs. So we could have some clients that will listen to this at some time, maybe some partners and some of our colleagues out here, IBMers. But the better way to grow program does allow our clients who have not invested or chosen an IBM storage solution to virtualize. We virtualize, I don't know, 400, 500 and some odd different platforms. We would love the opportunity to talk with you about virtualizing what you have, so you can sweat out that asset while you're able to take advantage of newer capable technology like our flash system. So something that you should talk to your partners. If you're a client here on the phone, partners, if you don't understand it, then talk to your IBMers and make sure that you're leveraging that program.
And if I could, I want to jump in real quick and say something, and that is, we think of flash system in particular as this integrated storage system ready to go. It's the storage media, the controllers, but at its heart, it is really a software-defined storage system. And, you know, when I came to IBM, I've been here about 6.5 years, I've seen an incredible number of addition. Oh, for anybody that knows me, I just got goosebumps. I've seen so much change in 6.5 years. You know, we had people that were asking for deduplication and it didn't exist. And then suddenly we had a firmware update and it existed. And we just constantly see this. We did not have immutable copies, and then we had them because we just updated the firmware. Well, a question just came in that I'd also heard that in 8.5 we're including VASA integration without the need for Spectrum Connect. And this is another perfect example of it didn't exist and then it did. And Brian, if you want to just briefly touch on it, I know this is something that you've been speaking to folks about just recently.
Yeah, sure. And another good question. And for those of you that, you know, have been asking us, get rid of those external things. I don't want to have to install, whether it's Spectrum Connect or a scheduler. Just give it to me internally, please. Yeah. So that's another one for the embedded VASA provider, so that if you're leveraging vVols, for example, you won't have a need for Spectrum Connect. You can do that all with the internal VASA provider, again, coming as part of 8.5.1 to a installation near you and very soon.
And Kat, I guess we should turn it back over to you. I do want to thank all of you guys for coming and participating in this. I know we tend to kid each other a lot, but it really is impressive how much knowledge exists within IBM and how readily it's shared with folks. And I hope everyone attending today realizes that unless we have to hold something really tight, we tend to be very willing to talk to you and try to help solve your problems and your clients' problems. I mean, that is what we're here for.
Absolutely. And just again, thank you so much to our panel. And for anyone who attended, as a reminder, this session was recorded and we'll be uploading it to our Mid-Market Tech Talk YouTube channel. So with that, I'm going to close out the session and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you.